Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Wolves Fancast YouTube channel. It is another tactical analysis video with me, Gully. Bit of a two-parter, actually, because there's a lot to get through. Obviously, a lot of games in short space of time. And we're kind of giddy with excitement, I guess, at the moment, because we've won 3 on the bounce, 9 points, 9 goals. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those fixtures, not in isolation, but a few of the things that we saw throughout those games that have basically led us to being in the position that we're in and feeling so good about his team. It's become quite exciting. 7 goals in the last 2 games in particular is just unheard of for us as Wolves fans. So you can forgive us for getting a little bit excited at the moment. But if you cast your mind back to the Chelsea game to begin with, famous now or almost notorious, the injured player going down so that managers can have a conversation and make a tactical tweak. Ryan Ait-Nouri was the player who was chosen, obviously because of his proximity to the bench probably in this Chelsea game. Because the first 15 minutes, to be honest, were a little bit ragged. We suffered quite a bit in terms of giving up space and looked likely to go a goal down. Now, having watched it back, it probably wasn't as bad as I felt watching the game live, but that's natural. Obviously, you have those nerves about you when you're seeing things kind of going awry. But it was good of Gary O'Neill to really kind of head it off at the pass in terms of making sure something was done about it before we really suffered. And from this point onwards, the only thing I can really think of in terms of us having an issue was the João Gomez losing the ball to Raheem Sterling, who went through one-on-one and then didn't square it amazingly. But other than that, obviously that had nothing to do with shape. But just to kind of set the scene for what the issue was to begin with, we kind of went man-to-man in for the most part, and our midfield pushed quite high. There is an inclination when you have an extra defender behind you for players to do that. It is the right thing to do, generally speaking. But Chelsea were finding quite vast amounts of space in front of our back line. And what that led to as well is strikers dropping into the space. You can see here Nicholas Jackson has dragged Craig Dawson away from his central zone. Totti Gomez nowhere to be seen in this because he had a man marking job basically on Cole Palmer throughout the game. But that also meant that Malo Gusto was dragging Ryan Ait-Nouri back into that channel and just vast expanse of our half, which was quite concerning. This happened 2 or 3 times within the game. Chelsea, I guess, were lucky that they're not very good, frankly, and didn't take advantage of it. But it wasn't a complicated, rectification of that problem. Just basically being a little bit more circumspect in our pressing. You can see here that Lemina and Gomez are kind of sat more alongside each other. Their opposite numbers in Nugochukwu and Gallagher they're not necessarily going in to press too high. We have the option to do it. A little bit more onus on the forward players to kind of manage a couple of pressing opportunities at the same time. You can see Cunha and Hwang are available to go out and manage these situations for themselves. And it allows the midfielders to kind of just check their shoulders, make sure they're getting dragged out of position too high and creating that problem for the centre halves whereby they're getting dragged into areas they don't want to be, especially someone like Dawson who can get exposed if he is isolated against a man 1v1. And from that moment onwards, frankly, we were the better team. And they were really kind of taking advantage of set piece situations. And as part 2 of this video, I'm going to touch on Pablo Sarabia as an individual, basically, because he's been really important to the way we've played. But the other person who I think has really kind of come into his own, and unfortunately we're going to be missing him now for a while, is Hwang Hee Chan, who leaves this period having scored a couple of goals. But I think the key aspect of his game that we've missed for a while, for some reason it hasn't been happening, despite this being a strength of his, is running in behind. And there's so many instances across the 3 games where it's caused problems for defences. And funnily enough, he didn't actually score a goal from any of these situations, but they led on to other things. And it just creates pressure and something for defenders to think about, basically. But if I kind of pick up on a couple of situations, first of all from the Chelsea game, pretty straightforward one. This again, I'll get onto Sarabia in the second part of this review, but his ability to find passes in behind, knowing that there's space in there. Hwang, that first 10 yards is always the key, I think, with him. He's so sharp off the mark that he leaves defenders for dead. He isn't necessarily one who's going to sprint in behind over 40 yards, but that initial burst from both to turn and go, defender versus attacker, he's always likely to win, and he times his runs brilliantly as well. So this was a really good chance. Obviously, each of these situations ended up with him picking up the ball in the penalty area. Should have done a lot better with this chance. Blasted it over the bar. We go into the Brentford game. First one leads to the corner, which leads to the ball coming out, and then Lamina scoring. So important again, picking up the ball in around those areas, causing a bit of panic, and stuff coming off of it. It's not necessarily the case that all these runs are going to create a goal or create a chance, but you're constantly playing on the shoulder. You're constantly making defenders think about what they're doing, be unsure about their positioning. I like these because this isn't necessarily against a high back line. So they're sharp movements, they're intricate passes. João Gomez on both instances here, really picking up nice forward passes, which is an element of his game is starting to come through. But the inclination, having played a few teams who played deep as well. In the preceding 3 games, I think we played Forest, West Ham, and Burnley, and we suffered because all 3 of them tended to sit a little bit deeper. But that doesn't mean there aren't opportunities to play the ball in behind, as kind of evidenced here. And then we're moving on to the Everton game as well. So this, for me, is important because if you cast your mind back to the Sheffield United game, second half, we'd had a really good first half, not capitalised on it with a goal, but Sheffield United then went man-to-man against us. Similar thing as to what Everton did against us with the back 5, and really caused us to... They stopped us building out, basically, from the back. Gary O'Neill commented afterwards that he preferred it if we'd gone a little bit more direct. Hwang is the key to that, basically. And in this instance, we're playing against a higher line, and we've got a space in behind to cover. Again, first occasion here, Hwang picks up the ball in the penalty area. Second occasion as well. I like this one because it's a bit more of a trained kind of movement where Mateus Cunha knows that James Tarkowski is going to come in deep with him. He creates an even bigger space for Hwang to run against Michael Keane, who is always going to have the beating of the pace. And then Totti, particularly Totti, because I think attacking teams tend to allow the ball into him and think that he's going to give the ball away. So you need to give him an extra option sometimes. So like I say, Cunha coming in deep. If Tarkowski comes with him, then Hwang has that channel to run in behind again. And once again, he picks up the ball in the penalty area and something can happen. Like I said, none of those situations end up in goals, but providing that threat, it just creates problems. And on the 10 times that you do it in a game, you might not pick up the ball, but the 11th might be the one where you make something from it. And I think forward players should really kind of take stock of this because it can be frustrating, it can be quite a tiresome role. But at the end of the day, if you don't run on the 11th and it's actually the one that you could have actually got in on, then you're going to be kicking yourself as well. Just to kind of evidence again how Hwang has really been playing at the forefront of the team, as opposed to sometimes you kind of get these inverted shapes with, especially when Neto was in the team, he was playing kind of as the highest attacker within the front 3. You get Cunha and Hwang dropping a little bit deeper so he could occupy that last line of throwing him with his pace. But here, Hwang is very much at the point of the arrow of the team, basically. So just another piece of evidence which highlights that we've got the most out of him, and we're going to miss him for the Asia Cup, obviously, for the next month. Hopefully, he does well. He's full of confidence. He's obviously got this goal record going now, which is brilliant to see. Obviously, the ticker's running across the bottom, but the key bit for me, which I wanted to highlight, was from the West Ham, Burnley, and Nottingham Forest games, Hwang touched the ball in the penalty area 9 times. The next 3 games combined, obviously the ones that are reviewed here, Chelsea, Everton, and Brentford, he touched the ball 18 times in the penalty area. So the more often he gets in, the more likely the team is going to succeed and him succeed as an individual as well. But part 2 coming up, going to have a look at Pablo Sarabia in a little bit more detail.